Hey there, Class 7. Welcome to this revision explainer. Look, I know exam season can feel totally overwhelming, but you've been putting in the hard work, and today, it's time to really lock down those marks. We're going to review one of the coolest, most fascinating topics in biology, the nervous system and reflex arcs. My goal today is to make these concepts absolutely crystal clear for you, so you can walk into that exam room feeling totally unstoppable. So get ready, get focused, and let's master this together.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Picture this. You're hanging out in the kitchen, maybe just daydreaming, and you accidentally touch the side of a scorching hot pan. Boom! Literally before you even realize what's happening, your hand violently jerks away. You definitely didn't think about it. You didn't casually say to yourself, "Oh, wow, this is quite hot. I should probably move my hand now." Your body just acted. But what exactly happened in that split second inside your body? To answer that, we're going to hit the pause button and freeze time right at the exact moment your finger touches that metal.
So here's our quick roadmap for today. We're going to hit the central nervous system, meet the neuron, cross the synapse, figure out what a reflex actually is, and finally break down the reflex arc.
All right, part 1, the central nervous system.
Okay, so without this system, we wouldn't be able to see, hear, remember things, or even move. So here's an absolutely crucial revision fact you've got to lock in for your exam. The central nervous system, or CNS for short, is the main site of all information processing. It's basically made up of two major parts, your brain and your spinal cord. You can think of the CNS as your body's ultimate command center. It takes in massive amounts of sensory information from your surroundings, decides what needs to be done about it, and then issues orders out to the rest of your body. Basically, all the real thinking happens right here.
Now, you've really got to contrast the CNS with the PNS, that's the peripheral nervous system. Think of it like this. If the central nervous system is the main command center, the peripheral nervous system is all the wiring. The PNS is made up of cranial nerves hooked directly to the brain and spinal nerves shooting out from the spinal cord. These nerves run all the way out to your fingertips, your toes, and literally everywhere in between, linking that central command to the rest of the body.
Moving on to part 2. Let's meet the neuron.
So what exactly is all this biological wiring actually made of? Definitely flag this one because it's a huge exam definition. A neuron, which you might also know as a nerve cell, is the structural and functional unit of the nervous system. And get this, they are the absolute longest cells in your body. Some can actually be over a meter long. They work just like a biological telephone cable, carrying messages in the form of electrical signals, which we call impulses, from one part of the body to another.
When you look at a typical neuron, the whole process kicks off at the top with the dendrites. Those are the short kind of hair-like branches that catch incoming signals. From there, the signal drops right into the cell body, or cyton, which holds the nucleus. Then, the message zooms down that super long fiber called the axon. And see how that axon is wrapped up in a fatty myelin sheath? That acts exactly like the plastic insulation on a normal electrical wire, making sure the signal travels incredibly fast all the way down to the axon terminals at the very end.
Now, examiners absolutely love asking you to tell the difference between types of neurons. So here's a super simple trick to remember. Sensory neurons take information in. They carry impulses from your sense organs like your skin or your eyes straight into the brain or spinal cord. On the flip side, motor neurons take commands out. They carry impulses from the brain or spinal cord out to your effector organs. Those are your muscles or glands, and the motor neurons are basically telling them to jump into action.
Which brings us to part 3, crossing the synapse.
We know these signals travel down a single neuron, but how in the world do they jump to the next one? Well, that brings us to another massive definition. A synapse is the really fine gap between two adjacent neurons. Yep, you heard that right. Neurons don't actually physically touch each other. The axon terminal of the first neuron gets incredibly, microscopically close to the dendrite of the second neuron, but there's always a tiny, tiny space left over between them.
Now, what's really interesting here is how your body actually bridges that tiny gap. When an electrical impulse hits the end of the axon, it can't just spark across empty space. No way. Instead, that electrical signal triggers the release of special chemicals called neurotransmitters. Think of these as little chemical text messages that float across the synaptic cleft. When they finally bind to the receptors on the next neuron's dendrite, they trigger a brand new electrical impulse, and the message just keeps on going. And this is super clever because it perfectly ensures that the signal only ever travels in one direction.
All right, part 4. What exactly is a reflex? So now that we've got the hardware down, let's unpause that hot pan scenario and look at our rapid response system in action. Listen up, because here comes a major exam prep cue. A reflex action is a spontaneous, completely automatic response to a stimulus. And the absolutely crucial part to remember, it's controlled entirely by the spinal cord, without the brain getting involved at all. It's a totally involuntary action, meaning you do it completely unknowingly, without your conscious will even stepping in.
So tying us right back to our opening hook. Why exactly do we yank our hand away from that scorching pan before we even register the pain? It's all about survival, plain and simple. I mean, if that sensory signal had to travel all the way up your arm, into your brain, get processed, and then wait for your brain to send a motor signal all the way back down, well, you'd have a pretty severe burn on your hands. Reflexes just completely bypass the brain to save those precious milliseconds and protect your body from major damage.
And finally, Part 5, the reflex arc explained.
For our last core topic, we're going to break down the exact path that hot pan signal actually takes. Now, you really need to know the difference between a reflex action and a reflex arc. The action is just the physical movement, right? Like pulling your hand away. But the reflex arc? That's the actual biological, anatomical nerve pathway that those electrical impulses travel along to make the whole thing happen.
Okay, let's walk through this sequence. It makes a perfect little roadmap for your exam. Step 1, the stimulus, which is our hot pan. Step 2, the receptor cells in your skin actually detect that intense heat. Step 3, a sensory neuron grabs that impulse and rushes it up your arm. Step 4, boom, the signal hits the spinal cord, where a relay or association neuron instantly passes the message right across. Step 5, a motor neuron carries the command straight back down. And step 6, the effector, which is your bicep muscle, contracts and you pull your hand away to safety.
And this flowchart brilliantly brings that whole sequence together. Seriously, examiners love to ask you to recreate this exact flow. You go from the stimulus to the receptor, up the sensory neuron, straight into the gray matter of the spinal cord. It jumps across the synapse to the relay neuron, across another synapse to the motor neuron, and then shoots right back out to the effector muscle to actually produce the response. It is just an incredibly efficient, lightning-fast loop of biological engineering.
So the big takeaway here is that your spinal cord is the absolute hero saving you from that hot pan. But honestly, that leaves us with a pretty wild question. If our spinal cord is busy handling these lightning-fast reflexes completely on its own, what is our brain busy doing right now? Well, it's busy forming memories, controlling all your voluntary actions, and obviously helping you ace your Class 7 exams. You guys did awesome today. We've totally crushed the CNS, neurons, synapses, and the entire reflex arc. Keep up the amazing studying and stay curious for your next biology chapter.